Okay, so welcome everyone to another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today, we're going to be looking at some pretty intense stuff happening right now in LA.
Right.
As we speak. As the city is kind of bracing itself for what might be one of the worst windstorms in a decade.
Yeah.
We're seeing some wildfires break out.
Yeah,
and we've got a whole bunch of news reports here to try and break down what exactly is happening and what we know so far.
Yeah, it's shaping up to be a bit of a perfect storm scenario, unfortunately. You know, we're seeing these Santa Ana winds, the projecting speeds up to 100 miles an hour. I mean, that's hurricane force.
That's nuts.
Extremely low humidity. I mean, the National Weather Service is using some pretty stark language here. Life-threatening, destructive, widespread windstorm. And on top of all that, they've issued a red flag warning.
Oh, wow.
Which means the risk of wildfire ignition and rapid spread is incredibly high.
Yeah, I remember seeing videos of those windstorms in the past, those Santa Anas, with palm trees practically bending in half.
Oh, yeah.
So what is it about these Santa Ana winds that makes them so unique and so dangerous when it comes to these fires?
Well, it's all about where they come from and how they behave. They originate, inland in the high deserts where the air is already very dry. And as they descend towards the coast, they get compressed and heat up.
Oh, wow.
Which reduces the humidity even further. So you basically have this hot, dry air that's blasting across the landscape with incredible force. It's almost like someone's taken like a giant hairdryer and is just aiming it right at the LA base.
So with all that dry brush, that's just...
Exactly. I mean, with all that oxygen being pushed around, any start can easily turn into a raging inferno.
That's a scary thought.
Yeah.
And I know from reading these reports that these kinds of windstorms has caused some major damage in the past.
Oh, absolutely. We've seen them. I mean, they topple power lines, uproot trees, damage structures. I remember back in 2011, we had a windstorm kind of similar to this one, and it left hundreds of thousands of people without power. And of course, you know, the most concerning aspect of these winds is that they can turn a small fire into a massive wildfire in a matter of hours.
And we're seeing that play out today with two fires that have erupted almost simultaneously.
Yeah.
The first one starting on Sunset Boulevard, 8481 Sunset, just north of La Cienega Boulevard.
Yeah, and that fire started in a building and almost immediately jumped to the dry brush in the Hollywood Hills behind it.
Oh, wow.
You know, it's a classic example of how these winds can carry embers, creating spot fires, and just expand things so rapidly. Reports are saying it covered at least a quarter acre in a very short amount of time and was advancing north towards homes on Queensway.
And those poor fire crews are just in this desperate battle to protect those structures. Mm-hmm. What are some of the key tactics they use in a wind-driven fire like this?
Well, you know, it's incredibly challenging because they're having to adapt their strategies to the unpredictable nature of the wind. You know, it's constantly shifting.
Right.
One key tactic, though, is creating fire breaks, which are basically strips of land that they clear of vegetation to try and stop the fire from spreading. It's almost like digging a trench in front of an advancing army.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
And then, of course, they use water drops from helicopters and planes to try and cool down the leading edge of the fire. But again, the wind can make aerial firefighting very difficult. You know, it can blow the water off target.
Yeah, it just
creates a lot of challenges.
So much is riding on the skill and bravery of those firefighters on the ground.
Absolutely.
And, you know, just as crews were tackling that fire on Sunset, another one breaks out in the Pacific Palisades, also fueled by these Santa Ana winds.
Oh, wow.
This one's in the 8400 block of West Sunset, started around 10:10 a.m., and has already burned over 200 acres.
Oh, my gosh.
In just 90 minutes.
That's incredible.
The speed of this fire is just alarming.
It really is.
I'm also seeing some reports describing this thick black smoke plume just rising from the fire. What did that tell us about the fire?
Yeah, that black smoke indicates that the fire is burning very hot and consuming a lot of fuel, probably a lot of dry brush and vegetation in that area. So it's a sign of intense energy release, and it's just a reminder of the destructive potential these fires possess.
And sadly, this fire is already threatening homes. And there are evacuations that have been ordered for the Sunset Mesa area.
It's just a crazy situation.
It is. It is. And the National Weather Service has issued that red flag warning. But, you know, for some of our listeners, I think it's worth explaining what exactly that means.
Yeah, absolutely. It's essentially a dire warning about critical fire weather conditions. So it means that the combination of strong winds, low humidity, and dry vegetation is creating this situation where wildfires can ignite very easily and spread incredibly rapidly. So when a red flag warning is issued, residents in the affected area need to be extra vigilant.
What kinds of things should they be doing?
Well, they need to avoid any activities that could spark a fire, even something as seemingly harmless as using a lawnmower, which can create sparks from the blades hitting rocks. They also need to make sure that they're prepared to evacuate if ordered to do so.
And we're hearing that electricity providers have started initiating those planned power shutoffs in some areas.
Yeah, that's right. Power lines can be a major ignition source during these high wind events.
How so?
Well, a downed power line can spark and ignite dry vegetation, and to reduce that risk, utility companies will sometimes preemptively shut off power to high-risk areas during these extreme wind events. Now, it is a controversial measure because it disrupts people's lives.
Right.
It can cause hardships for businesses and residents.
Yeah.
But it can also be a life-saving measure.
Absolutely. And, both of these fires are just a stark illustration of the power of nature and really the increasing frequency of these extreme weather events.
Absolutely. And, these kind of events are unfortunately becoming more common. And it's a trend that scientists link to climate change. As temperatures rise, we can expect more intense heat waves, which dry out vegetation and make it more susceptible to burning, and more frequent and severe windstorms like the one we're seeing today.
Right.
It's a reminder that we really need to adapt to this new reality and start taking steps to mitigate these risks as much as we can.
And I think, that brings up an important question for all of us listening.
Yeah.
What individual actions can people take to prepare for and stay safe during extreme weather events like this, especially when the risk of wildfire is so high?
Well, I think the most important thing is to have an emergency plan in place. And that includes knowing your evacuation routes, having a go bag ready with essential supplies.
Yeah.
Make sure you have a way to receive emergency alerts, whether that's through your phone or a weather radio.
Right.
And if you live in a high-risk area, you really want to take some steps to create what's called defensible space around your home by clearing brush and vegetation away from your structures.
Yeah.
Being prepared can really make all the difference.
Absolutely. Well, this has been a truly informative deep dive into a rapidly developing and frankly dangerous situation. It underscores once again the power of nature.
Absolutely.
And just the vital importance of being prepared. Thank you for joining us. Stay safe out there, everybody.
It's safe.